Hi, okay, now we are on to Access API. Access API, one of the Moodle APIs, very important API because really it's about security. Now, we actually covered this a little bit in the previous API, which was Page API, because obviously even the page needs security, needs accessing. So, but I need to go into a lot more detail now, so because this is what we're going to cover really. And before I actually go through what I actually mentioned before, I want to give you this analogy or metaphor, if you will, of what how the Access API works. It actually consists of contexts. Context of these are the context system here. You got context system, which is the topmost context. You got the context user, which is the user context. Each user has its own. And then you have the course card context, which is the course category and course block. Then the context course, which is for the module block for a single course. Then you have the context module, which is an activity block. Um it's actually an activity and it's in a block. That's what this context what this context consists of. Then you have the context block, which is the block itself. Now, if that is any confusing at all, then just bear with me. It's really super simple. Um, this image would let me show you this image of context. This would clarify it. Um, so um, before I show you this image, let me just use this metaphor again. So it's really about an office block, a corporate office block of say maybe 6 floors, okay? And you've got the executive director staff on the top floor, okay, which is the 6th floor, top floor. You've got the management staff on the lower 2 floor, which is the fourth and fifth floor, and then you've got everybody else from the the cooks to the cleaners to the drivers to the engineering team and everybody else who makes the operation run smoothly on the front of house staff are all on the other 3 floors. Now, the way if you have to give access passes to all these people based on the access they have, based on the kind of work they do, and I've already categorized 3 areas, okay, directors, managers, and the rest of the house staff. You will notice that you would give the directors a higher context, you would give the management a middle context, and the directors will can have access to the managers, except you do not want to give them access, whereby you give the exceptions, and the directors can have access to the rest of the staff, except you do not want to give them. Likewise, the managers can have access to the rest of the staff, except we don't want to give them access. But the managers can have access to the directors level of this context hierarchy. Neither can the rest of the house have access to the management level of the building. Their passes will not work there. That's what I'm saying. Now, this is where the cost module or CMID comes in. The CMID, just like the context, is very important. Very, very important, just like the context too. Uh, CM stands for cost module. And in this very same metaphor, cost module will stand for, say, for example, legal department. That would be a cost module. Say, for example, um say, for example, you have catering department, they will have their own management staff, right? They will have their own cost model. You have the logistics, they will have their own cost model. You have the engineering, they will have their own cost module uh, for the management level and for the rest of house level and the director level. So you can see cost module is like a unit, an ID that's in the database that can have different contexts. So using this metaphor I've just used now, um, say for example you work in IBM as a director of IT, you would have access at the very top of the building, or the sixth floor, and you may have access to all the other to the lower floors, but you will not have access on your own sixth floor to the rooms you're not allowed to have access to. And but you have access on that floor uh, to the course module CMIDs you have that are related to you. Okay, now which ones are is what why we are having this discussion now, because these CMIDs and context IDs are all related, and that's where access it has its own API so that you can readily relate or communicate between parts of the same solution. Now, this image, which I'm going to expand, uh, there it is. So this image shows, okay, there it is. This image shows the context a little bit clearer. So you have the page context, which is the login, or let me just say, this is the frame for it. Okay, then you have the site, which is the system. The system is the site. Okay, that's the topmost context. Then you have the categories context. Okay, then you have the personal, you have the courses context. Then you have the activities context, and then the blocks, which is the activity and the block are the same. They are the same. This is the same context. And you have the surrounding, which could be courses, which is a different context. Then you have the categories context. Then you have the system context. Okay. Then you have, of course, the user context, which is this one here. That is its own context. Okay. So for this one, you require login is here. This is because you're required to log in so that we can determine which context you have. That's the required login you saw earlier. All right. So that's another description of how this works. Um, okay. So like I said, this is very important. That's why it's important that I show you this way. Another way to look at it is you got the site, you got the category, subcategory A, subcategory site, subcategory B, then the courses on one level, then another level, subcategory and courses. So this is another way of looking at it. Okay. Now you do have constant levels for these, context level constants for these in the access lib. That this is a file I'll show you later on. Context system, which is the highest one, you get the constant level is 10. For the user, the constant level is 30. For course cat is 40. For course is 50. For module is 70. For block is 80. Now, taking that back to our metaphor, which I was using, this means, for example, if you're relating to an activity in the cleaning department, that could be an 80. If it's a cost, it could be a 70. That all of those who, it could be a 50, sorry, that all of those in the catering department have to take, or all of those yeah, all of those in catering, all of those in driving, all of those in logistics, all of those and the rest of the house have to take. Now, if it's a cost cut level, it could just be that the whole house can take it, the whole building can take it, but it has to be for their own category because this is category level 40. And if it's a user level, that means obviously it now depends on their own user login. And if it's for that whole site, that is with the whole building, then that is the Cortex System 10. So I thought I mentioned this because the CMID and the context, once understood, you've understood 50% of it already, of what the Moodle access is all about. So yeah, that you can always come back to this. Just Google Moodle docs context and you find it. Okay, so let's go back to Access API now. Right. So it says a role is a set of capability definitions where each capability represents something that the user is able to do. Roles are defined at the topmost context in the context tree, the system context. So these are referred to as in a tree, whereby depending on the access you have, then you have different you are in different levels of the tree or different branches of the tree. So roles can be overridden by context further down the tree. So different kind of roles. For example, you could have in the rest of house context, you could override such that uh, um, somebody who doesn't a driver who doesn't have a chauffeur who doesn't have access to the director's garage can have access to it because the original driver or original chauffeur is unavailable that day. That's just another metaphor being used there. So user access is calculated from the combination of roles which are assigned to each user. So all of these, this access is actually assigned during registration, during initiation of the user to the system, to the Moodle system. Um, that's where the roles are assigned and context is given. It says all users that do not log in, that did not log in yet automatically get the default role defined in not login user role ID. So, and they get given a guest ID, and from there it's being calculated. You can study from there, okay? So, when it comes to new plugins, and this is exactly what we're going to be doing, we are going to develop a new plugin. So we need to give it new capabilities. But for now, if you do realize, we've actually copied the folder plugin or duplicated the folder plugin and then named it what we want to name it because we're actually defining it and we're going to be giving new capabilities if necessary. So I'll take you to where it is right now because it will have the same DB access, DB stroke, DB slash access the PHP file in there, and you will see these capabilities defined there for it. And then if you want to tinker with it, this is the whole, this is what they all mean. So let's go to what it looks like in the first place. So going back going to into VS Code, and we say open file. It takes us back there. Go to DB and we open this one, access.php. Right. So this is the access.php, and exactly what it says here is what it says there. You see that? This is what's here, and this means associated risk. In other words, there are risks involved. Yeah. Cap type means read or write capability for security reasons. Risk. If so, it says like for this one, it says write. So you have write capability. Okay, for that one. For the risk bit, it is risk underscore XXS, which it says is defined here. So if you want to understand that, you just check it up, so you know exactly what capability to give it. Start from default. Okay, start from default whenever you duplicate plugins, depending on what you're trying to achieve. As we go further along, will become clearer. Context level here. Context level is context cost. So this is where we give it the context cost. By default, what now happens is for this plugin, the context cost is given to this piece of software. Okay, so you see, this is where we assign context to it for this particular software. Now, archetypes. The array is what is defined here, which is specifies default for roles with standard archetype that is used in installs, upgrades, and when resetting roles. It is recommended to use only cap allow here. Archetypes are defined in Moodle role table. So cap allow is what is recommended, and we're going to stick to that. Clone permission from. When you are adding a new capability, you can tell Moodle to copy the permissions for each role from the current settings for another capability. This may give you better defaults than just using archetypes for administrators who have heavily customized their roles configuration. The full syntax is clone permission from, for example, in this one, Moodle quiz attempt. Okay, so in this one, we're seeing cost management, cost manage activities. Okay, so this is the clone permissions attempt, sorry, clone permissions from we are having for this one. And um, we can, as a matter of fact, I think we should stick with that one because we are dealing with activities, but we could decide for something else later. Now, another thing is when you change plugin versions, we need to deprecate where necessary the capabilities. Okay, and this is done here. So um, as it's done here. So what happens is you place the replacement um, here. So this is the new one, and you put it in it says, so you put the where this new one is, where the old one is, and replacement the replacement for this old one is now this one here, and you put this message, this was replacing another capability, right? So um, that's how we do deprecated capabilities. So the deprecated capabilities now um, that's what's commented out here for, for if you're going to deprecate something, right? So that's that. Okay. Um, so there are some useful functional classes for this. Context fetching by ID. You can use this system context and can use that to fetch it, which actually is used in build.php when you check it. And then you can check fetch by context ID, which is context instance by ID. Now, if you go to build.php, you see um, CM get analytic text from ID. See that? But then again, we don't even have ID here, so we're not yet we're not yet tinkling with the ID yet. So, but if we went into the original file, we would see it there. Right. So okay, the next one is function has capability. Has capability is the most important function, as it says here. The most important function has capability because this is what checks if we can do anything with the file. So it's just as it may be more important than require login, but require login is very important too. So it checks if the context is right. So it says, this is an example of how it works. Context model instance, CM, ID, if has capability, mode, folder, manage files context. So that's how we work with that. Then there's another function require capability, which checks your context and it throws an exception if the user does not have capability. So these are just access checks, security checks to make sure everything works fine. So the other related functions, which you can work with for access control. Then the require login, which is the one here. It said each plugin should include require login or require course login after setting up the page URL. Well, this is actually done before you set up the page URL. The function it verifies that user is logged in before accessing any course or activities. Not logged in users cannot enter any courses. Okay, so require course login does the same thing, but only um, but that means the setting is the person doesn't have to be logged in, but has to be logged into that course. So that's just a lower level of login. So that's you have other functions like get users by capability, which uh, which is something you can run on Moodle. So that's it for this lesson. The next one will be string API. Yeah, we just quickly go to string API next. So thank you for viewing this video, and I'll see you in the next one.